Reading is Hebrews 13, verse 6. It says, "So we can say with confidence, the Lord is my helper. I will not be afraid. What can anyone do to me?" The word of God for the people of God.
So when I started thinking about the Bible verses that talked about confidence, I came to this verse. And I don't know if you remember when I first left this church to go serve at Radnor, there was a Bible set out. And it was for me, and you all were asked to either underline or make a note in my Bible with some of the verses. And chapter 13, verse 6 out of Hebrews. That young lady right back there underlined it and left me a note. Today we're talking about confidence. And as I considered the word confidence, I thought about, a little child. Now, if you don't know, we have a preschool. And I interact with a lot of the kiddos. Now, sometimes they surprise me. I have been sitting in my office and turned around, and all of a sudden there's a kid there. So I have jumped in my chair on more than one occasion. But as I consider the word confidence, I think about this. Approach life with the confidence of a 4-year-old in a Batman shirt. You can put Power Rangers, you can put Superman, whatever you want to say. Have you ever seen a little kid with that much confidence? Oh my gosh, especially on Halloween. They put those costumes on, they are Batman. They are Superman. And if they come across somebody who is dressed like one of the villains, look out. There will be a fight. The sentence is, we plan big things for tomorrow in spite of zero knowledge of the future. That is confidence. We have to consider, what does it mean to be confident? What does it mean to look at life head on? Henry Ward Beecher, a story goes that when he was a little boy, he was in class, and the teacher asked him a question. He stood up, he answered it with confidence. He knew he was right. And the teacher said, "No, sit down, you're wrong." Henry thought, I guess I could be wrong. I thought for sure I was right. So she called on another boy, said, "Stand up, what's the answer?" And he said the same answer. Ironically, the same answer that Henry had said. She said, "Wrong, sit down." "You're wrong." Now, Henry was getting confused because that was the exact same answer he thought was right. And this is the second time somebody had said that. So she called on a third boy and said, "Answer it." So the boy stood up, said the answer, the same answer that Henry had said, and this other boy had said too. She said, "Wrong, sit down." Now he was really confused because he knew he was right, and now there was two others giving the exact same answer. So he stood up. She said, "What are you doing?" He said, "I was right." She said, "No, you were wrong." He said, "No, I was right." And she came stomping over. You ever made a teacher mad? You know the stomp I'm talking about. Now, luckily, I've had good teachers that never stomped at me too much. But she get right up to his face and said, "You're absolutely right. She said, "You were all right." But he was the only one with confidence. She said, "You need to approach life that way. If you're right, no matter what anybody else says." Now, we got to be careful with that, of course, right? We do have to be careful with it. We have to be careful in our confidence. And this goes whether we're talking about faith or we're talking about life. The difference is in what we have confidence in. You see, we're lucky. We're blessed to have confidence in something that is unwavering, that doesn't go away, that doesn't sit down no matter how many people say it's wrong. We have something to stand with, something that will support us, something that will have our back. And that's Christ. He is something we can have confidence in. Now, some of the other things might be a little fuzzy, but Christ himself, the love of Christ, we can have confidence in that. We can have confidence that he will always be there. He will always stand at our back. He will always be by our side. He will always support us no matter what. I said that Psalm 27 is one of my favorites. That's actually on, that's my wedding ring. It's on this ring. Psalm 27:1. "The Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom shall I fear?" Now, I memorized it, one, because I got the ring as a gift, and I figured I probably ought to memorize something if I'm wearing it. I mean, you ever worn a shirt and somebody said, "That's really nice. What's it say?" And you're like, "I have no idea." But it also inspires me. It inspires me because, do you know what I feel like the greatest killer of confidence is? Fear. Fear is the greatest killer of confidence. You know, we always talk about when especially when we're talking about spiritual things, well, Satan did this or the devil did this. Or I feel like, you know what? We cause enough problems on our own. We give him too much credit. We can do as much or even worse issues to ourselves and to others completely on our own, just being human. What drives us down? What causes us issues? What causes us conflicts? What causes us problems? It's usually fear. What holds us back? It's usually fear. The big thing, especially as you get older, is to put together a bucket list, right? Everybody in general has a bucket list, or at least something I want to do before I die. And I'm going to ask you, why haven't you done them yet? Honestly, why haven't you done them yet? Now, some may say, well, I don't have the money. I don't have the time. I can't do it because of this reason or this reason or this reason. Though, honestly, those are usually just straight up excuses. The reason you're not doing them is because of fear. I've had people say, well, I on my bucket list is to do a mission trip to Africa. Okay, why haven't you gone? Well, I can't afford it. I'll tell you what, I can make sure there's money for you. Well, what about vacation time? Schedule it in for the next year. Well, and believe me, I've done this. I literally did this about a mission trip, so I know exactly what I'm talking about. It was fear. That's what held me back from doing it, and that's what holds people back a lot. Now, that's kind of an extreme answer, but think about it from a spiritual side of things, a ministerial side of things. How many ministries have not moved forward, have not existed because of fear? I really feel like this is something we need to do, but I'm just afraid we won't have the money for it. Do you feel like God has called you to do it? Then do it. The money will show up. Again, I've seen it. I've seen it here happen. Money will show up. So honestly, that is the least of my concerns many times when it comes to ministry. Money is, we'll figure something out on that. It's getting people to do it. We need people to do things. We need people to actively consider what they're doing. Yesterday, I taught a class on spiritual gifts. And it was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed doing it. And I asked each one of them, and they had to answer it, why are you taking this class? Well, very often it was, I feel like I'm supposed to do something, but I don't know how to do it. You know what? You've already taken the absolute biggest step, is admitting you don't know what to do, but you want to do something. They were not letting fear stand in the way. They were not letting fear control them, to have this clamp on them. You see, the Lord is my helper. I will not be afraid. What can mere mortals? You can change that. What can mere money? What can mere goods? What can mere time? What can mere anything do to me? God is behind ministry. I don't know what ministry that is, but if God's calling you to do it, then do it. I had a student yesterday. She said, I took the spiritual gifts quiz, but teaching isn't very high on the list, and I really feel like I'm called to teach. You know what? I gave you the test. I'm teaching the class. Throw it away if it's causing you to slow down. She felt like she was called to teach, and she was talking about how much impact it had when she taught this one Bible study. I said, that's the only confirmation you need. God guided you to that Bible study, to teach that Bible study. There's your answer. I'm sure you've all heard this, and it seems kind of cliche anymore, but God does not call the qualified. He qualifies the called. So don't fear, don't be scared that you're going to not have the skills for it. You're not going to have the ability to do it. Have the confidence that God is right there with you. I think I've shared before, I seem pretty confident up here, don't I? I can stand up and talk to people pretty easily. My wedding day, Laura and I talked about the fact that we should have had stock bought in Pepto-Bismol. I was chugging that stuff. I was so nervous. And all I had to do was repeat what the pastor had said. I didn't have to come up with anything on my own. And I had somebody say, well, why didn't you not smile while you're up there? I said, I could either say the words or I could smile. If I tried to do both, I was out. I was passing out. See, I'm not qualified to be up here. And I'm okay with saying that. I'm not qualified to be up here. I've said it more than once. I have given a sermon and it's not in my notes and I say something, ooh, that was cool. I got to write that down because I know it wasn't me. It was God sharing these words. But we have to walk across that path, don't we? We have to follow that path, even though it's scary, it's frightening. We have to have confidence that the one who laid the path is going to be with us. There's a story that goes in the early days of the United States. There was a guy on one side of the Mississippi River, and the river had frozen over. And the guy needed to get across, but there was no bridge. Well, as anybody would, I need to get across, but I'm not sure the ice is going to hold me, right? That's a legitimate question. And, again, this was quite a while ago, so it wasn't like he could call 911 if he goes in the water. So he gets down and gets on his hands and knees and kind of tests the ice. And he's kind of tapping it. And all right, I think I'm okay. I think I can do this. So he starts to slowly, very slowly, crawl across. Because he figures, well, even if it's a little thinner, if I distribute my weight, I'll be okay. It's safe. So he starts slowly crawling across. And night is coming. I mean, it's getting dark, and he has to get over there. And, of course, he's quite a ways across. And about halfway across, he starts to hear a sound, this little bit of a rumble. And all of a sudden, shooting right past him, is two horses pulling a sleigh. And the guy riding the sleigh is just singing along as he shoots past. And here was this guy crawling on this ice. He wasn't sure it was going to be strong enough to hold him. And here was quite a bit more than him going across. Now, obviously, we can sympathize with this guy because he did not know the path, did he? He didn't know what that ice was going to look like. He wasn't like the guy who just drove the sled across, who had complete and total confidence in that path. But you know why? Because he knew the path. Or somebody had told him about the path, and maybe he'd been across it before. He knew the path in some way, shape, or form. So he had confidence. He already knew it. This guy, this other guy crawling along, he didn't know what the path was like. But he went anyways. He didn't let fear control him. Now, obviously, if he'd gone through, that would have been a different story. But very often, we crawl, even when we have the assurance. Even when we have God telling us time and time again, trust me, I got this. I made this path for you. I am blessed to be able to say I have a friend by the name of Dave Filippo. Not because that's her name, but because she wrote some poems. And I wanted to share one with you. If you are not a fan of poems that don't rhyme, I'm sorry. But I wanted to share this with you because it kind of reminds me of, how many of you read the Chronicles of Narnia? Anybody, especially The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. Absolute great book series if you've not read it. But there's one line in there that is, it just always comes to mind. The White Witch has taken over Narnia. And for years and years and years, it has always been winter. And for those who read it, what did all the animals say about winter? Anybody remember? What? Always winter, never Christmas. Always winter, never Christmas. And I'm going to change that a little bit because I'm going to say always winter, never spring. That's the mentality we have, it seems like. We always fear that spring is never going to show up. We always fear that we're going to live in the winters of our lives, in the negative, the downtrodden times of lives. So I want to share this with you. Snow is falling softly past the windows, no wind to drive it. So the flakes take their time, turning, some rising a bit again. Like the clouds of gnats one sees stirring by the roadside in fall. Mother Goose preening her feathers, my father used to say. Of snow like this, snow intending no harm, not blinding drivers, or the woman walking out to her mailbox on the leaning post. By the gravel road, motherly snow, gently blanketing the garden and house, fence and fence post, giving the mailbox a little. Peaked cap, blanketing also, one supposes, the white-tailed deer we haven't seen by the white pines for days now. Herd of 9, at last count, frisky among the fragrant soft-needled branches. Then, hoping off downhill to the creek, trail into the deep woods, where I imagine them snuggled, nose to tail, sheltered together. Next spring's fawns warm and sprouting in their bellies. Fawns waiting the way wildflowers wait to be called into the world. The way our grandson waits, curled in his mother's belly. Soon, spring. You see, very often we, again, get stuck in this. Right now, there's an issue going on. I'm not talking about the pandemic, or at least not the pandemic you're thinking. There's something called seasonal depression. People deal with it. It's very much a legitimate thing right now. And they're in the mentality of always winter, never spring. We all get that way, though, whether we admit it or whether we put that label on it. But we need to have confidence that spring is coming. Spring is on the horizon. We have the love of Jesus Christ to get us through. We have the trust, the hope, and yes, the confidence that he will be with us always. Let's bow our heads.